Welcome to the Chicagoland Guide, and I'm your host, Aaron Masliansky. Today, this guest needs no introduction, at least to me, because I know him pretty well. Rabbi Jeremy Fine. He is the rabbi of Congregation B'nai Tikvah in Deerfield, and also the founder of Second Wrestling, and a dear friend of mine. And I've been trying to get him onto one of my various podcasts over the years, and I finally pinned him down. I'm so excited to speak with you, Jeremy.
Pinning down is a wrestling term, which we have not got into. Let's just say my wrestling career is undefeated and you have no chance of pinning me down. But I'm very excited to be here. So thank you. I'm a longtime listener and follower, and I've seen all the iterations of this and probably heard about them before you did them. So
True.
To do this, and there's a reason for me being here, so which is always important for podcasts.
Yeah, it's always important to have reasons for having a guest, but definitely we're going to get to that. You've got some events going on, in your congregational life and in your wrestling life, and one of which is going to be in Evanston, which is close by to me. But you're definitely a unique character. For those who don't know you, you are a rabbi and a wrestling promoter. It's not a joke. I tell a lot of people who I meet about you, and it's totally different. So, how did you get to this, to this place in your life to be this rabbi and wrestling promoter?
So just put things in perspective. I am a rabbi about 99% of my time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 99.9 repeating percent. And I happen to do this wrestling on the side. I'll get into how, but I just in general think it's important for clergy to have interests and to that outside of religion, and for a multitude of reasons. But maybe the most important is a outlet for their own lives, emotional, spiritual, just mental health, and mine happens to be wrestling. But it wasn't always planned that way. So the story is that the summer I was getting married, I started a Jewish sports blog. It still exists. It's called thegreatrabbino.com. It's the longest running Jewish sports blog. We post once or twice a week. We have a decent following, and I got to do some really cool things with that. I covered the Super Bowl. I got to cover the Final Four, was on the floors. Confetti was coming down. One of the coolest moments of my life for sure. NBA, WNBA. I also serve as one of the rabbi for Team Israel Baseball. I'm very involved with them. Got to cover their spring training before the Olympics. So I got to do a lot of things with that. Met thousands of athletes over my life. One day, my wife took me to see a professional wrestler from Deerfield. His name's Cole Cabana. He's become a good friend of mine. And I had never seen him wrestle professionally. So my wife, as like a surprise, which was unbeknownst to her, would lead down this rabbit hole of a crazy life. He went to this show, this like independent show. And I don't want to say small. It wasn't small. It's a large independent show. And I fell in love. I was never a big concert goer. Actually, you were at like we went to my first concert together. I think Blues Traveler was the first time I saw it.
Oh, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. But so I never had that like thing, right? I never had a club outside of like my Jewish life, outside of maybe sports. Like I had teams or intramurals and things like that, but nothing like that. And I was just telling some congregants about this when I went home to Minnesota. I was thinking like, I'll go to one or two shows when I'm able to, a year locally in Minnesota. And they wanted to run a wrestling show in the synagogue. This was when I was living in Minnesota. And my first response was, I've done some pretty out there stuff.
Yeah.
This was beyond. By our second show, in a blizzard on a Wednesday night in Minnesota, we sold over 400 tickets, sold out, made $5,000 for the synagogue. And I just sat on this as like, how could we ignore the desires of people, the connection? I can't tell you how many religious people came into the synagogue, who left religion, came back into the synagogue, how the energy in the room, the excitement. Worked with this wonderful company called First Wrestling. They're the largest company in Minnesota. We are still very close with the promoter today. I spoke with him 5 minutes ago. And so we ran a handful of shows in Minnesota at the synagogue. And then when I was leaving to come home, mostly to be near you, Aaron, although my parents think it was for them.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to lose the locker room and the camaraderie. You and I played sports together most of our lives. And one of the reasons we play is to spend time with other guys, other people.
Right. It's fun.
Right. It's a shared community. And as we joke about it, my body's not able to withstand quite the athletics I did when I was younger, but I really miss the camaraderie. And so I pitched this to First Wrestling promoter Eric Cannon, Colt Cabana back, who I referenced earlier. And I talked about doing 1 to 2 shows a year, and they thought it was a great idea. We're in the middle of our year 4.5, and we've done over 40 shows. We'll do another 5 or 7 this summer, and it's just taken off. We have a fan base. We have some big things coming up. We've done a show WrestleMania week. We've traveled to Wisconsin, LA twice, Orlando. We have New Orleans coming up next year, potentially Detroit this summer, Wisconsin. We've done a little stuff. I may have said Wisconsin. We've done a little stuff in Minnesota. So we are fully involved in the independent wrestling scene. And I do this mostly from my phone.
Right.
Yeah, it does not take a lot of my time, and it rarely, if ever, takes me away from my family or my full-time job.
Well, you're coming for the WWE.
No, but that's the cool thing. Like, I get to work. Yeah. I've worked with the WWE. I've worked with TNA Wrestling. And so these types of things are really things I never thought I'd be able to do, but I've gotten to do them.
What's interesting, though, is so we've known each other since high school. We went to high school together and we went to college together. So really through those formative years. And you have always been involved in different types of leadership, and you're always involved in Judaism. You wrote your own script for a wrestling league when we were in high school, and you'd put in you give character names to all of our classmates and all of our friends and everything. And I mean, it's really like you had this vision, and people talk about having a vision and how it can come to life. And I think like your major was in communications in college, right? So that was being a rabbi and doing these types of things. They really do come together. So people may look at it from the outside and be like, how does this all work? But I could see it playing out for years. I mean, too long at this point.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth there. Like, none of these things I do because it's like just off the wall crazy. I do it. It's a natural progression. I've been very, very lucky in wrestling to have a mentor like Eric Cannon. I consider myself one of the luckiest people in wrestling to have someone like that in my corner and that I can pitch ideas to, and helps me. I think the best promoter in the world. And in my religious life, for sure, I believe one of my goals in rabbinical school was to learn from every rabbi and find the ones who are going to help me be better. So a lot of it is mentorship and listening. The wrestling world and the religious world and the things I'm learning, I'm absolutely applying to my work life. So I'm running my own small business. That makes me better at listening to financial things that are going on at the synagogue. I'm booking talent and venues. That gives me an understanding of where people are spending their money and how people get excited, and listening to crowds, right? So now I'm speaking how to speak to when I speak to, I was in one match. That's it. I'll be in one match. I don't mean I've done some silly stuff, but like, I don't really want to wrestle again. But I got out uninjured. I'm happy. But one of the amazing things about that preparation is that I cut a promo, which is what, a wrestling jargon for like, I'm going to say something mean about you or challenge you, right, on video. And the photographer, the videographer said to a bunch of us, like, why is the rabbi better at this than most of the wrestlers? But the truth is, it's because I speak for a living.
Right.
I understand when my voice should go up and come down, and what's a threat and what's excitement and what's preaching and so they really overlap. It has absolutely made me a better rabbi. I really don't know what I would do at this point without wrestling. I'd find another outlet, but I don't really want one. It's a very scary business. But I think the biggest thing that from my mentors that I learned about being a rabbi is how to stay calm, both with what goes on in the world, whether that be like, you may have known there was a pandemic a few years ago.
Yeah, I heard about it.
You heard about that. So
I'm still in my basement.
So you're right.
It's nice to have a basement, by the way.
You're right. Like life cycle events, right? So like, you could do a baby naming and a funeral on the same day, and you have to have a different cadence and response, and you have to be emotionally available. And so that has helped me very much. The wrestling world, I mean, I've had 7 wrestlers in one show drop out the day of. you have to rewrite the whole show, and you have to a whole new script, and you have to do that within minutes. And
Yeah.
the key is to stay, how do you stay calm and make the best decision in the heat of the moment? And so my religious life and my fun life, whatever, for lack of a better term, coincide all the time. And they teach me how to be better at both.
One thing that people look at is like religion or, cultural connection has really changed over the years, especially during COVID and everything else, cultural life, community. Yesterday, they named a new pope, which obviously isn't Jewish, but they named a new pope. He's from Chicago. Everyone's trying to tie it to whether or not he's a Cubs fan or a White Sox fan. It's funny to see. It's nice for Chicago to be right here in the middle of it, but you try to tie things into community. When you do this, like you're trying to figure out also how to bring people where they are, how to find people, because a lot of times it's just been so old fashioned. So besides wrestling, how do you go about trying to find where people are, how to meet them, how to help people find connection?
Yeah, I think the first piece is authenticity. Don't do things that you as a religious leader or a community leader aren't authentic about. And also surround yourself with great people. Those are two big things. And surround yourself with people who know different things. So, if you're in a company and your strength is sales, but your strength isn't necessarily marketing, find someone who is good and work with them. The other piece is to always go out and watch how people are behaving and remove yourself from that equation. But like one of the things I tend to do almost every year is I'll go to a comic book, like a Comic-Con. Now, I love the Avengers, and I have some experience in the comic book world, which we can talk about if you want, but not to the extent of some of these people. But I go and I watch what the trends are. What are the new toys? What are 50 people coming to do that's interesting? I'm always watching what our kids are like, my kids are doing, but also like the community's kids are like interested in. So like, I give this example. My kids didn't really, my little one does, but they sort of grew up a little before Bluey, right? The cartoon character, right?
I don't even know Bluey.
Right. Because our kids are just, we were into other things, right?
Right.
Now Bluey's the big, so of course I wouldn't know that. But then I watch all these kids come to watch them on Halloween or in Purim or things like that. And they're wearing Bluey costumes. So that I was like, who is that? Right. I'm watching my daughters, or I'm listening to my daughters, what music they're listening to. I listen to that music. I'm trying to stay forward thinking, but I'm also a big traditionalist. I mean, that's I think the heat or the excitement, or maybe even the tension that people feel with me as a leader, is that I am a traditionalist. I would choose to do things for myself one day when I get to actually go to pray for myself. I probably wouldn't necessarily choose the community that I'm leading, although this community I probably would, but I'm honest, I probably belong to multiple ones, but because they give me different things. But there has to be an understanding that we still have to progress. So the tension is people see the wrestling or they see the big programs that we're doing, and they may say, he must be super progressive in everything he does. That's not true. My belief is that religion hasn't really changed or shouldn't really be changed. The presentation of religion has to change, how we talk about it. So one of the two big messages I've used with the synagogue since I've arrived was, one, disco died. You may like disco, but it died. Mm-hmm. And if you try to play disco for the kids, they ain't showing up. And I know that because we're playing disco religiously. Most synagogues are, and the kids aren't showing up. The parents and the kids don't want to be there for them. The second is, disco died. The other is to not build a religion out of fear, build a religion out of joy. And those are my two big messages, that if we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, we should expect the same results, that being disco. And if we build this out of fear, you can expect the same results that we have felt over the last 4 years. And that's not just right. Jews, that's for Christians and Muslims as well, or any religion.
Right. I mean, it definitely can be, and you've seen numbers drop, but give us some examples of some of the different types of programs that you've done to bring people in of all ages. And, I would even bring it back to what you did in Minnesota, the different types of people that you brought in.
Yeah. So Minnesota, my first, I would say what I was most well known was for Kosher Fest, which is a kosher food convention of 35 vendors. In a place like Minnesota, they don't really get that. And so it was a really big extravaganza. Every single year we did it, and non-Jews showed up too, because foodies are foodies. And food culture, like we're watching, you have the Food Network. Like food is a massive thing. It's not, it's like, what is it? An Anchorman when they make, no one's going to watch sports all day long, right? Like,
Yeah, ESPN.
yeah. So that was us. We did some autograph signings. We did a big celebrity fundraiser. That's the only program I've really taken with me here. We did a massive block party. We were involved with all the local businesses and food trucks and fun trucks. It was a lot of fun. Here we do something called Hanukkah, which is Hanukkah meets Comic-Con. We bring in some celebrities, minor celebrities, decent celebrities, sports figures. We've had Eddie Curry from the Bulls. We've had Aaron Schwartz, who was in the Mighty Ducks. We've had Eve Loseth, who was in a couple episodes of Saved by the Bell. We bring in authors and then social media guys. So
you had a challah bake-off.
Yeah, we had a challah
which was delicious.
Right. Do things where people, like the kids, get so amped up about this that the parents are excited and the grandparents are excited. So we have some other things coming. I think that could be bigger. I think one of the things we face here is that, or the difference between Minnesota and Chicago, is that Minnesota, because of the smaller Jewish community, is always looking to do more religious stuff. And it doesn't even mean prayer. It just means connection to their people. And that's not just for the Jewish community. That could be for the Lutheran community. It could be for anyone. It just feels smaller. And in Chicago, it doesn't necessarily the same thing, or it's oversaturated with, Jewish film and Jewish music and da-da-da. So it's harder for us to say why we should be doing it, why we as a synagogue should be doing it, when it's offered down the street by the actual club who's doing it.
Right. Yeah. It's just, there's such a force multiplier here in Chicago. You have so many more things here. But I mean, I just have to mention, like, you got to interview some pretty amazing people, which I thought has just been so cool. I mean, Mel Brooks, you got to interview, and you had a podcast where you actually got to be friends with Bob Saget before he passed away.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that. I mean, it's like, that was like a dream of yours to get to meet this guy. And then it turns out you become friends with him, and, right at that time in his life.
Yeah. So Mel Brooks, Aaron Sorkin is another real big one. Rachel Brosnahan, who's actually from Chicago. And here we've had some wonderful talent too. Obviously, Bob Saget for me was the most, I would say, fulfilling. Bob was as advertised, and the reason his death still lingers today and people still think about him is because he touched so many people. And I will tell you, from the moment I met him, I felt like we were going to be friends. Sadly, he had invited me to something very special to him that, unfortunately, he passed away before I was able to meet with him. The last time we talked was actually after Norm Macdonald passed away, and they were dear friends. But I got to spend three or four different sessions with him when we joked about how we were on a cycle of seeing each other every 2 weeks. Yeah, and I said to him, Bob, I miss you. He goes, I miss you so much. But it was a feeling of just, he made everyone in the room feel like his best. He was his advertisement. He was just a special human being. The world deeply misses people like that. It's sad that I only got to spend some time with him. I got to get to know Richie Lewis and his family a little bit. So yeah, I've gotten to rub elbows. Sometimes they say to you, there's that, it's definitely a wrestling term. They say, don't meet your heroes. There's certainly, celebrities that I met that I would say, like, whatever. But there's also some who are like super special. Mel Brooks is a super special human being. Richie Lewis was a special human being. Bob Saget was the most special human being. You know who else was also? Aaron Sorkin was, the second he arrived, in Judaism we say a mensch, but just a wonderful person. And I know he's not in the limelight a lot, but one of the smartest people. I mean, just are so articulate and interesting. I mean, the guy's first contribution to the film world was A Few Good Men. My first contribution to anything was like scoring 6 points in a basketball game.
Yeah, hitting the floor.
Yes, exactly. That was something I did in high school. Yeah,
you sure did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. There was once a rabbi who said anything can happen. Right?
That was me. I said that.
That was you.
All the time. Like,
and it really did.
It's my product placement.
Nice. Yeah. Starbucks.
They need help struggling.
Yeah, right. But it's so cool. I mean, you put this stuff out there, like nobody would ever think, why is a rabbi speaking to these people, or like having these fun events? And it's just like, it's breaking the mold. And I think that's what's you kind of just have to think like that, and then anything really is possible. Like, and it's not just any like meeting these cool celebrities, but it's bringing people in, it's growing these different types of things. It's having a wrestling organization as your side project, where I joke with you, it's like every week. It's not, but it feels like that sometimes.
Well, I mean, you got to be, whatever you're doing, if you're passionate about it, you can make it work. You also have to be realistic. I think people confuse that. Like, if I'm passionate about it, it's going to work. No, you have to be realistic, right? So, like, I wasn't like, I'm quitting being a rabbi and I'm going all in on this just randomly one day. I actually was talking to someone today about this advice. Like, you really have to go through the scenarios. So when I started this, again, it was supposed to be like one to two shows a year. Even if it lost money, okay, like I'm doing it as a hobby. Like, imagine like what your hobby is, biking. So you have to spend money on a bike every year. You maybe get your tires fixed, and you get your gears fixed. And you buy a new water bottle. Like, there's up costs, right? Not a lot.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, if this is my hobby and I lose a little money, same thing with the blog and the podcast. But they all helped me. So in Minnesota, I stopped my podcast. Bob Saget was the last person I interviewed, and it was hard for me I didn't understand, like, okay, well, if Bob was like one of my top 5 guests I would ever have, how do I get, like, what am I calling Michael Jordan? Like, how do I, like, I didn't know how to go from there. And so I stopped it, and I've thought about bringing it back in different iterations, but I think it always helped, and this is something I learned in Minnesota, it always helped bring it back to me being a better rabbi. I was having interesting conversations with people. My congregants wanted to hear that. It allowed me to meet new people, breweries or food locally, or, I got to meet this guy, Dan Jurgens, who's a very famous and amazing comic book writer. Okay. And Dan and I have become friends. And then I got to consult on a Batman comic, which was like the coolest thing ever. I told him I would do it as long as I could call myself the rabbinic advisor to Gotham City, which he agreed. But that relationship happens. And then, oh, Dan, come, you want to speak at the synagogue? And so things are organically, by making connections both to venues and to people and to products and to interests and to organizations, it benefits the global community. So I see wrestling actually as a booster to what I do as a rabbi. I do not see it as a deterrent. And a lot of communities, that's hard to explain to them. But if your rabbi doesn't have passions and spending 24 hours a day, 7 days a week doing rabbinic work, or your pastor, right? I have a close pastor friend now who him and I talk about this stuff all the time. You're going to lose them. You're going to burn them out.
You're going to burn out.
Or they're going to be unhappy, or they're going to be acting and fake, and they're not going to be able to relate to the people. So it may not happen the first 10 years, but it will drag them down. You have to support your religious leaders, you have to support your teachers and your doctors, and those taking the brunt of helping other people. They need outlets, and if you don't allow them to have it, they'll burn. And I just know it because I'm watching it. I wrote about this a while ago, that like traditional rabbis are leaving the pulpit. I wrote about this before it was a crisis in America, that there weren't clergy. People are like, oh no, and I'm like, oh, I don't need
just wait.
Yeah, I don't need a Pew Research study to tell me this. I'm watching the most talented people leave, and there's a reason they're leaving.
Well, there's quite a bit of emotional heartache that you have to deal with. I mean, it's especially as a rabbi, with COVID and dealing with separation, and how do you bring people together, and on and on. And then, of course, we had October 7th and everything with the aftermath of that time period, and such a rise in anti-Semitism. So how do you as a rabbi deal with that while still keeping positivity and fun within the religion, the culture, when there's been so much heartache around it?
Yeah, in many ways, COVID and October 7th were similar in the sense that they changed what I do completely. A lot of rabbis are still struggling with that. It's not what we signed up for. We didn't sign up for America to be divided about something we think is so simple. And we certainly didn't expect to do Judaism online so soon. Maybe we expected that in 2040, but not in 2020. And so you have to be adaptable. You have to be flexible. You have to be very calm. I mean, that's where the wrestling comes in, teaching me that. It's heavy. I can't tell you it feels good. Sometimes you have to suppress, sometimes you have to act. You have to always be reading. You have to work at a faster pace. You have to let some things go. Just tell yourself and to your community that they don't matter. Like, we have much bigger things to do right now. Some of it,
Well, not even that they don't matter. It's just that you have to prioritize.
In comparison, right?
Right.
We don't need to paint yes, maybe painting the synagogue is really important right now, but it's not more important than having this incredible event with a speaker that our community needs to hear, right?
Right.
So can we delay the, I'm just giving a random example, but there's, it hasn't been easy. I don't think it's been easy on any religious leaders since 2020, just Jews. I don't know how this gets solved. I'm hopeful for Ronald Reagan type or a Bill Clinton type, someone who can speak to the whole country. That's not a knock on our current or past president. I just think America is not fully listening, and social media hurts that. I mean, we're, as humanity, have to figure out how we deal with hate, how we deal with sharing information, how we deal with, most importantly, the truth, and also respecting people's differences of opinion, as long as it's not that other people should be harmed.
Right. I think that it's okay for people to have differences of opinion, but we should respect each other and move on and not harm, no violence. I agree. And, it's just something that I find interesting. You mentioned social media, and we talked about this offline, but I posted something about a previous podcast where we were talking about tariffs and what's going on in real estate. And I boosted the post on Facebook. I just want to try to get more followers and whatnot. And the amount of hate comments on the post, which I don't even know were from actual human beings, blew my mind. I'm like, really? And it none of it even made sense. It was just political back and forth. And I'm like, it doesn't really have anything to do with, I mean, it somewhat does, but it didn't seem real. And that's kind of what we're dealing with. And these algorithms are just inciting people.
Yeah. So first of all, I have a sort of a general rule that I don't talk about anything I don't know about. I listen. And so, for example, if you ask me what my favorite ice cream flavor is, we can have a conversation about, I like mint chocolate chip and I like cookie dough, and we can have our opinion. But if you're asking me about, I'll give you an example. Obviously, India and Pakistan are now at war, or have started a war. I don't know exactly what they're labeling it, but I'm not an expert on that. I've read a little bit because of recently. I mean, before this happened, I didn't read. So I am not going to make a statement. I'm not going to sign a piece of paper. I am not going to infuse my opinion on what's going on there when I know almost nothing about this. And we live in a world, because you can read a headline and think you're an expert, that you feel you have to chime in. I mean this seriously, and we've talked about this. How many people are actually experts on tariffs? I have met one person who articulately shared with me, because they work in import export and some of this stuff, about the tariffs and what they could do from his perspective. And I listened, because everyone else is just like, he did this, it's bad. He did that, it's good. That's not true. Not everything you've done in your life is great. Everything I've done in life is great. Certainly no president has been perfect, or we would just figure out a way to keep them, right? So, I mean, even those who we really look to, like Clinton and Reagan, had really, complicated, people hated them too, or they messed up. We lived through Clinton messing up, right? And things like that. So, we have to go back to a place where we listen more and don't have to enforce our will about topics we know nothing of, just because we think the person's bad or good. That we joke a lot about. I listen to Bill Maher religiously, not because of just Bill Maher being what I feel is a centrist, although he'll tell you he's a liberal. I listen to him because he has both sides on. And how great is it that we can have conversations, or people are willing to have conversations with him across the aisle, not just political, religious, whatever. And he's been a beacon of hope. We talked Sam Harris, another person, Barry Weiss.
Right.
These people willing to talk to sometimes controversial people, but also open the doors open to Republicans and Democrats, and people are willing to have those conversations there.
Yeah, we have to step outside of our silos. And, it used to be, before you had social media and everything, people were watching the same TV shows. People were doing the same types of things, where we had more of a civic identity.
Yeah.
And now it's very, very bifurcated. And I think one of the things that I love that you do is that you try to bring all people together for different things. So it could be at the synagogue where you're doing an event where you have people from all, like what did with the food trucks, or you do different types of things. You have people all coming in and who are interested in it, who may not be into things religiously, but they want to be doing something Jewishly, or if they are more into it, ritually, then they have that too. And then with the wrestling, that's a whole nother gamut of people. And then you even do things that are more kid friendly, where it's all ages shows and things like that. So it's not just for one, it's for many. It's really cool to be able to bring people together in a time that we're in right now.
So one of the big other, there's a lots of things we haven't gone down the road with wrestling, but there's something special that happens in our locker room, I think, by a rabbi being in wrestling. First of all, certainly there's not a ton, but those Jewish wrestlers know they have a place to go and a safe person to talk to. And that could be having an anti-Semitic incident in the locker room, to just like wanting to wish a rabbi Shana Tova, which means Happy New Year. And non-Jews have a place to go and learn about Judaism. Like, we did a show very early on at the Jewish Community Center at the JCC. And, I think maybe there was one or two Jews on the show. I don't recall the whole list of wrestlers, but they see a mezuzah on the side. They said, "Rabbi, what is this?" So I taught this whole room of non-Jews, about like walking in and wanting this to be a home and peace and what's in there, and being mindful about not being the center of the universe. It was a really powerful moment for me. So that's important. The other thing is, like, I think social media, I think, as we talked about disco, like, I don't know what the next generations are going to do. They may not want social media as much. Like, of course they're going to, but think about us. We were on Facebook first, and we were on it because it was the cool thing to do, and because it connected you with, and then our parents got a hold of it, and they use Facebook totally different than we do. They make mistakes that you and I just sit there like, why are they doing that, right? Or posting their political opinions, or sharing things that they thought, oh, it was a direct message. They just don't get it. Well, okay, we're going to be that generation eventually. And then are the younger people's like, they might just, Facebook may not, maybe Facebook survives, or there's one. I've already gotten rid of TikTok. I've already gotten rid of one social media account on a different platform. And I probably will get another this summer. I'm paring down, and besides for wrestling, because I use it for business advertisement more so than for my own personal use. I'm very rarely on social media for my own personal use. And I have just found it to be, my Instagram is very specific. Facebook, I post really I do three things. I promote synagogue stuff, I promote wrestling stuff, and I occasionally egg people on with my sports takes.
You sure do.
Yes, I'm notorious for bashing the Cubs and notorious for bashing LeBron James. And if you want that kind of content, I'm definitely somebody.
You are the content king of that, for sure.
Yeah. Well, anyone who says LeBron James is good as Michael Jordan needs to be called out. I mean, that's the root of all evil.
I think that you should appreciate him a little bit more, because he has been an amazing player, but that's a different.
Is he a player? Is he still playing?
I think he's still playing. Well, not right now, because he's out of the playoffs.
He's in. I think he's crying. I think.
Yeah. So you have some big events coming up. You have a big event at the synagogue, a big fundraiser. You have some really cool wrestling events coming up. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So let's do synagogue first. We have an event called Everybody Wants This, which is two stars from the hit Netflix show Everybody Wants This. Nobody Wants This. Jackie Tohn, who is amazing. I've worked with her before. And Timothy Simons, who's going to be great. Jackie Tohn and Timothy are married on the show. And they're going to talk about it. There was some controversy about whether it portrays Jewish characters in a good light. I loved the show, thought it was hilarious, thought it did a great job actually depicting it. For the first time as a rabbi, I felt seen. And what I mean by that is every show that's had a rabbi over the last 10 years has either had a very hip female rabbi or an old man Jewish rabbi. I don't consider myself either of those things. So it was nice to have a younger rabbi who played basketball. I certainly could take him off the dribble, but that's a different talk. That's May 22nd. Tickets are through our website. It should be a lot of fun. It's our annual fundraiser. So they're not like the cheapest tickets in the world, but they go to benefit the synagogue and all that we do and all we provide. So that.
And I'll have the link to that in the show notes too.
Great. And yeah, and we, also we just did a big event for young families where we had like different trucks and cars and motorcycles and automobiles in our parking lot, we were packed. So yeah, we're trying to keep our foot on the pedal. Then wrestling, I have a free show May 18th. So if you've never seen a professional wrestling show and you're like, what is this? Or is this rabbi crazy? Or do I need something different to do with my family? I would say come out May 18th to Anchorfish Printing and Embroidery. They have sort of like a mini block party, food trucks, etc. And
that's in Evanston.
That's in Evanston. We are the entertainment. We have our champion David Ali on hand. We have international superstar Shaza McKenzie on hand. Our Maxwell Street Heritage Championship will be on the line between two of our most common wrestlers, Sean Logan and Ezio Orlandi. It should be a great show. But following that, we have two really big shows this summer that I'm really excited about. The first one is June 12th in the evening at Dirty Nelly's in Palatine. It's one of our main venues that we play. It's a great place to watch wrestling, but great place for music as well. We'll have former WWE Tag Team Champion Brian Myers on hand. He's also a big in the toy industry, plus Kylie Ray, who's probably the best independent wrestler in the world right now. I think it's
wow.
So she'll be wrestling for our championship and a whole host of others. And then the big news is that we just sort of announced is on July 1st, we are finally headed to the city in one of our new homes, the Cubby Bear.
Whoa.
And we have some of the biggest wrestling names in the world on that show, from Effie to Marcus Mathers to Kylie Ray will be back. And Brittany Brooks. These are just some of the names that we're going to have. So it's going to be a tremendous show that has already started selling. The response over the last 2 days to all these shows have been crazy.
That's going to sell out.
I sure hope so. We're right across the street from Wrigley Field. We are filming commercials. We're doing the whole bit, rolling out the red carpet because we're super excited and hope to be back. And then we have other shows we do. We're going to be doing a more of a kids show, like Glow in the Dark in September. We have a Halloween-based sort of show where we bring in a lot of fun characters in October, and then hopefully back at the Cubby Bear. So there's a lot going on with wrestling. Most of our wrestling shows are on Thursday nights and Sunday afternoons when I have the least amount of work, which goes to show you that Rabbi comes first.
I don't know how you do it. It's awesome, though. I think it's a lot of it. It's awesome. And then, Jeremy, if people want to follow you on social media so they can hear about your musings on the White Sox, LeBron James, wrestling, everything, where should they follow you?
Rabbi Jeremy Fine on Facebook. I'm not like a big accept everyone on Facebook. So if you want to follow, it's Rabbi Jeremy Fine. Everything is Second Wrestling with a 2. So 2 instead of the S, Second Wrestling. So at Second Wrestling on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We don't have TikTok. Someone's trying to persuade me to do that. I don't think I will. We're super excited about all those things. So yeah, Rabbi Jeremy Fine on Facebook and Second Wrestling, everything else. 2 and then wrestling, Second Wrestling.
Second City?
No, Second City. First of all, the reason it's not Second City is because it was an ode to First Wrestling, which was in Minnesota.
Right.
I also assumed maybe wrongly that there was already a Second City Wrestling at some point. I just assumed there was. So we went with this. Our color's purple, which I don't know. I just thought it would stand out a little bit. So yeah, Second Wrestling. I wish I've got hats. We got merch. We just got these.
I think I have.
We got new trading cards.
Yeah, I've got merch.
You got merch.
Your sunglasses.
Wrestling. We got our second series 2 of our trading cards just came out, and actually the first ever Rabbi Fine card can be found usually in there. So we're super excited.
Oh, it's awesome. You got a ton of great stuff going on. I love it. I love being a part of it. So cool. Thank you so much for joining me in the ring today.
Yeah.
Yes. And thank you everybody for tuning in.
Thank you.